Breaking nuclear news. Let's get this thing popping off right now. First up, price action. The Sprott Uranium Miners ETF was down 7.5%. The broader market was down 0.17%. So big divergence here. Short-term losses in a more volatile asset. It's just the bottom line. There's a reason you guys are watching this and not the S&P 500 index fund channel, because we're investigating the technologies that are in the early stages of mass adoption, right? Which means that in theory, there is potential life-changing upside. If you want the 8% every year, then you invest in the S&P 500. If you're a short-term investor or day trader, then you could trade anything. It doesn't have to be uranium stocks. But if you're a long-term investor, like the Warren Buffetts, the Carl Icahns, the Mark Cubans, the Elon Musks, the Jeff Bezoses, the billionaires of the world, they're all long-term investors because they ride their equity, they hold it for the long term, right? They're not short-term day traders. If you're like one of those people that are seeking out that life-changing long-term upside, then you want to stay on top of the fundamentals of the market long-term and stay on top of the news. Now, the good news is long-term investors in uranium that have been in this space for years have massively outperformed every single other asset class. Since the newly awakened nuclear renaissance, since Sprott Physical Uranium Trust started taking scarce supply out of circulating supply off the market, nuclear technology-linked assets have massively outperformed. So look at this chart. Since the end of 2019, uranium miners in black and the uranium spot price in yellow have outperformed a broad basket of commodities in red, U.S. equities in blue, and U.S. bonds in pink. That is why we focus on the long term. So let's dive through the news and underlying fundamentals of this market. Well, first up, speaking long term, let's look at where this technology is going, where the use cases are. Americans heading back to the moon with the help of nuclear. The last time humans stepped foot on the moon or even traveled beyond low orbit was in 1972, the final mission of NASA's historic Apollo space program. Today, nearly 50 years later, NASA launched uncrewed Artemis 1, the first in a series of missions with the ambitious goals that nuclear energy will help achieve. But what happens when darkness inevitably falls? That's where nuclear energy comes in. The lunar night is a cold, harsh environment for our space explorers to live and work within, but nuclear fission, surface power, will ensure reliable access to energy no matter the terrain or temperature. It creates electricity by converting the heat generated from splitting uranium atoms, a process that doesn't rely on available sunlight. The Fission Surface Power Project is a very achievable first step toward the United States establishing nuclear power on the moon. We are in the early stages of the mass adoption of nuclear power, period. So this is just one incredible use case. Then in the nearer term, you have to follow the money, the big money. This comes from the U.S. Department of Energy. This says it all. The Biden administration is making big investments that will help combat the climate crisis and provide cheap, reliable electricity by driving next-gen reactor deployment, keeping existing nuclear plants operational, boosting current reactor performance. So you have the government supporting nuclear. This is a story that's been in development for a long time now. U.S. military ways funding mining projects in Canada amid rivalry with China. The United States military has been quietly soliciting applications for Canadian mining projects that want American public funding through a major national security initiative. The government and the military realize how important a sustainable supply of uranium is. They don't want to rely on Russia, and so they're investing heavily in uranium. As many people like to point out, it doesn't get bigger than this. USA Ukraine announced cooperation on clean fuels from small modular reactors. Ukraine and the USA have announced the project to demonstrate the production of hydrogen and ammonia using small modular reactor and innovative electrolysis technologies in Ukraine. Small modular nuclear reactors, which use uranium as fuel, are being implemented here. Again, the most powerful institutions of the world, the US government, putting its weight and money behind this infrastructure. And we know that since uranium is scarce above ground, we've covered it in every video, the supply crunch, right? There's not enough supply above ground currently to meet the massive ballooning demand, and therefore prices are just going to have to rise. That is how supply-demand fundamentals always work. It's just simple math. Excellent news for other U.S. uranium miners, such as Western, as Energy Fuels says it's establishing an ore purchasing program to secure additional feed to the White Mesa mill from others in the region as uranium mining picks up. So the North American miners, including Energy Fuels, are securing supply. They see the writing on the wall. They see the big money pouring in. They want as much as possible. The Department of Energy is teaming up with utilities to support 4 hydrogen demo products at nuclear power plants. High temperature electrolyzers for hydrogen production use both heat and electricity to split water and are more efficient than low temperature electrolyzers. Traditional and advanced nuclear reactors are well suited to provide the constant heat and electricity needed to produce clean hydrogen. So go figure, just like space exploration is adopting nuclear power, so is the hydrogen industry. And the Department of Energy is teaming up with utilities to make that happen. Now, that's just in the world's largest economy, the United States. Let's go global. What is happening around the world? At the UN's climate change conference, nuclear power is finally getting some respect. The bigger problem now is that outmoded regulations stand in the way of deployment. In her reflection on COP27, panelist Carol Berrigan, the executive director of federal programs and supplier relationships at the Nuclear Energy Institute, observed that the conversation around nuclear power is much different than it was 10 years ago. We are getting stronger and stronger support as more people are recognizing that clean power will play a big role in the world's energy future. Berrigan specifically pointed out the growing number of bills in U.S. state legislators that support nuclear power, as well as strong bipartisan support in Congress. Hungary plans life extension for packs, just a small corner of the world. This is happening everywhere. Nuclear plants are being extended and built everywhere. And then this is a very interesting developing story, right? We know Kazakhstan is a massive provider of uranium, so any instability there will disrupt the supply chain and cause prices to spike. And so we have to stay on top of any potential instability. Kazakhstan says foiled coup attempt ahead of early vote. The National Security Committee said a group of 7 people plan to organize riots and a coup and proclaim a provisional government, adding that the suspects share the views of exiled opponent Mukhtar Ablyazov. But deep social inequality that was the origin of the January protests remains a problem and a potential political threat. Think about this in terms of supply chain disruptions. The International Monetary Fund has warned of the persistent risk of instability as Kazakhstan's economy, heavily dependent on Russia, is suffering from the impact of the war in Ukraine. So it could get a lot worse before it gets better here. And we will continue to stay on top of this market.